Oh yeah, we did the whole time. Yeah. And eventually, you know, she had an automobile, and she had insisted I go to college with it. Like she had a ride, people coming right by there and take her.
One of the things that that we're looking at in this movie is
Sir.
Did she drive that Chevrolet there?
Uh-huh.
You got a piece of wire sticking in your back tire. I don't think it went all the way through.
really.
I was gonna pull it out and see was it leaking.
Why don't you go out there and look with him and make a decision what you want to do there. How people mistreated, not allowed to organize and all
We're
that.
not looking at how people were mistreated at all. What we're looking at really is there was this big strike in '34, and people don't really much understand it at all. I mean, it was the biggest strike in the history of the United States,
Well,
all over the country.
there was no violence in our mills in Macon. Now, I think they had a little trouble in Porterdale, but they did not have any in Macon.
But did they ever become unionized?
No, never.
And you fought it being unionized?
I did what?
You fought it being unionized?
I did not want it to be organized.
But you were very strong in it being against.
Oh, sure, I was strong, but I still say it wasn't the best interest. The national organization, like they came in with the Blue Eagle and all that stuff, that helped largely the whole condition. But Marjorie, don't you think the cotton mill workers were, and the ones that you knew, were better than the average person in town?
You mean it had better conditions?
Yeah, better conditions and pay.
It's amazing to me to talk to people that grew up at these reunions. That's what you ought to do, is come to one of the reunions.
I'd like to.
And to hear how grateful they are.
Well, let me tell you, she's got down to, she's already talked to Mary Lou Whitlock.
No,
you
I
know.
haven't. I want to.
Pearl is writing the book on City.
That's her daughter, right? No, I haven't. Not yet.
She actually is writing the book or has written a book.
She told me she was in the process of doing something, but I
I
don't
think
remember.
she's doing a doctoral thesis on it.
And I told her to go see Hazel Brickle, but she already had a name. I said, that's a fine lady.
Miss Parks.
Yeah, Mabley Parks. Yeah, they're just the top. They top. Yeah.
But these people like Buck McDougal and William Mayo that were raised with me.
Yeah, yeah.
They thought they had more opportunity.
Well, you also told me, Marjorie, when you went overseas, that you were prepared to mix and mingle with most of them because of your training that you had in there. Just.
And also, I have to say my training, the scuffles I had, and running with the pack helped me a lot too, Dan.
Yeah.
Running with the what?
You know, running with the children. I mean, we would get up in the morning and we just stay, in sports, and Daddy would build. We had baseball diamonds, little baseball diamonds, medium.
Community swimming pool.
We had a swimming pool.
Free doctors, free nurse.
From 4 to 6 and 7 to 9 every day. And it was supervised. And we had a nursery.
That's right, nursery for the workers' children. Uh-huh.
Had a nurse.
And you had the lifeguard, the swimming pool, and the community workers. You remember old Uncle John and all those.
I think it was from 4 to 6.
The community was so much more friendly than over town. The workers thought nothing of coming over to our house and say, Velma, I want you to try so-and-so, bring something to eat, And we got on, Marjorie, the mill was on short time, the people not working but 3 or 4 days a week. And of course their pay was diminished. And Marjorie would like salmon patties. Do you know what salmon patties are? She loved those, and she would go with this lady and invite her to come up there, and she'd eat with them, and she'd come back with her where she'd been. We'd fuss at her because those people on reduced earnings where I drew my regular salary. I told her to, and of course the people wanted her to come. They didn't do it.
And our mother would never let me eat, until supper time, so I would stop, and I remember I would be, swimming makes you so hungry, and I'd stop and get mayonnaise sandwiches. Just mayonnaise, because I would be so starved. But what I would send you to you, and I think that's the reason I'm in such good physical health. now is that all day would be an activity. Then Daddy built a big playground, had a lot of unique playground equipment. I mean, we just stayed active.
Was that your decision? Was it up to you personally what the Mill Village got and the services and activities?
Of course, I could represent them to management. Like I recommended that we have a lighted baseball field, and we had the first one in the county. And then after we did that, I wanted the lake built out there in front of the house where we lived, and we got a 7-acre lake. The company, I didn't pay for it. This company paid for it.
You had a skating rink.
Yeah, I built them a oval skating rink because none of the roads in the Payne City are made with concrete. It's all asphalt. You can't skate on that too well. And so we got a skating rink, built a playground too, under fence.
And you had a lot of stuff, stuff that you designed for the playground, like a barrel. You know, you see people walking a barrel. We had a barrel rigged over a metal pipe so you could walk the barrel. And the joggle boards. You have a joggle.
Yeah.
Where you stack the boards up. We had that with a metal thing, and jump on either side.
We had a playground supervisor. You remember that? In other words, I didn't want a playground unless we had a cyclone fence around and have definite hours. Keep people from tearing up the equipment,
But the other villages didn't have all that.
Well, long years ago they did,
But they did. And the same time you built all that, the other villages didn't have
No,
a lake
no,
or
no,
a playground.
See, because Payne City was a rural area. It's out of the city, just like this house is out of the city. But it's right near the mill.
But why would that mean that it got more? I think you instrumental in it.
Well, I did what I could, Marge, because I was brought up in the community. I knew what they would enjoy.
You got a lot, and people in Payne City thought it was you that did that.
Well, I'll say this. The people were better. This was more of a rural mill rather than a city mill, and the people are good country people. That's fine, excellent people. We had some of the best workers I've ever had.
Daddy would go hunting with them, with the men, and he got lost in the river. The boat turned over, and he was lost for how many nights?
Oh, it was one night, Margaret.
But you should have seen those men.
Looking for him?
Oh, goodness. They were just, I can still remember. I remember going to school and the children said, your daddy's dead. He's not coming. He's not coming back. But those men they stayed up all night and just piles. I just remember just many.
But Margaret didn't give you the pertinent information. That was, we had.
Did the Mill Village have a lot of the same benefits that your daughter was just describing to me in the 30s?
Same thing. Every mill had the same facilities. There were 3 communities. Number 1 mill over near the Indian Mound, and then number 2 there in almost the heart of the city, and then a rural place, Payne Mill. It was good. Times were hard back there, Judy. People told me after I came to Payne City that they remember walking from Payne City to downtown Macon, which is a long ways, and then walking back home to save a nickel trolley fare. Going there now. That's how hard times were.
But Judy, I was interested in what you said, and I'll be interested. You say the Bill was more organized. But you mean other villages did all this social benevolence?
I'm saying a lot of other villages did a lot of the social benevolence.
Same time?
Yeah, I could refer you to a book.
Really? I like, what's the book?
It's called Like a Family.
Oh.
And that's because lots of people describe this experience.
Are you trying to get Judy's name?
Oh, no, I was getting Like a Family. But you said they
By Jackie Hall.
Did they have as much though as this?
I get the impression that maybe Bibb was one of the model, could stand out as a model community. I don't know. But Bibb sounds like it really had a tremendous amount.
I wonder where Bibb got the concept from.
Yeah, where do you think Bibb got the idea to create?
I thought we had better working conditions and pay than the other mills, textile mills. Is that what you want to know?
No, I mean,
Where did the concept of the family come from? Why did Bill adopt this program?
Well, it goes way back, but I understand before my day, there was talk about some of the supervisors was taking advantage of the workers, like asking a married woman for a date or something like that. And so they hired the president of the company, hired Mr. Pittman that I told you about, to make it a wholesome social organization in the community. And then they hired the social workers, and they hired the doctor and the nurse to look after it. And it was nice. Mr. Anderson is a fine old gentleman.
But Daddy, surely they got the concept from somewhere. I mean,
Well, of course, Mr. Anderson and Mr. Portavost were religious gentlemen, you know, represented in the church. I used to tell a story about this fella in Macon, and it's a story that this person was trying to find a particular church in Macon. Christ Church is what he was. And so he went down Marble Avenue and saw this old black gentleman, and he asked him, said, "You know where Christ Church is?" He said, "Lord knows, mister." Said, "I don't know where Christ Church is." Said, "Now you take that first church up there." So that's Mr. Wallace Willingham's church. And says, "You go on down about 2 blocks, and that's Mr. Anderson's church." And he said, one other one they called, who was a leading white man in the organization. And he said, "I tell you the truth, Mr. said, I don't believe Christ has got a church in Macon," all naming the dominant man in the community. I hope you understand that.
I do.
Christ just didn't have a church.
That's very funny.
They'll get that.
Since the company took such good care of their workers,
I think so. I think so.
she's saying since the company took, she's going to ask you a question.
Oh, I see. She's leading it to make it gentle. All right, go ahead.
yeah, I'm wondering how the company felt when the workers did take the opportunity to try and organize in 1934.
Well, at our particular mill, there wasn't a lot of them that did, but because they knew legally they had a right to join, and because the company didn't care, didn't want a union, because instead of them being able to work the people, they had to go by union laws and rules and regulations. And the union never was organized, for even a large percentage of the workers. But the union picked or decided that Bill was a good company to start with, because it had mills in several cities, you know. You get one, you get a whole lot of workers to bring in more money to the union.
Do you remember how they started to organize?
How what?
Do you remember when they started to organize?
Yes, I had heard about it, yeah. I was in, it was about in 1934, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
In the summer.
I'd just been started in school. In working and going to school. I graduated from high school in 34. I graduated in 1932, but in 34 I started the Mercer. So I was well familiar with it. I didn't want to join it because I thought it was a good company to work for, and I thought the people were treated all right.
Did friends of yours trying
to solicit me?
Yeah.
No, they didn't me because they knew I was close to management. They were nice to me to help me go through the mill, and because I left the opportunity. I didn't have to go with the company. I had other offers. You say offer, I say offer. I had other offers, you know. In fact, one of them wanted me to go to, boy, I've made superintendent there. Another mill asked me to come to Augusta and be over that mill, and I wouldn't do it.
I've heard that one way that the union came in was in a car with a lot of people, called it a flying squadron. Do you recall them coming in and
No, I never remember any union soliciting at the mill, at gates people came to work in. Usually it was done at night. People got off and go to see this worker and that worker and so on like that.
Was it done in?
I was never approached though, Georgia,
I see.
because they would say I was management control.
So, what happened when they were picketing? Do you recall that?
No, Judy, I don't think we had it.
I've seen.
What did the other people say? You talked to about?
One reason why I did come to Macon was because I saw some film footage of the strike in Macon.
In Macon?
Yeah.
Well, Judy, I just don't remember that. I worked during the strike when they were striking. They gave me work to be a watchman. Make the tours of the whole mill, punch the keys to show that you're checking to see there's no files, any trouble, and all. I went the whole work.
There's some people went to work and some people didn't during that.
Oh, it was very few of the workers. Very few of the workers that worked. I mean, while the strike was on, nobody worked. I don't remember the duration of it. Do you know what is the duration?
Well, I know that generally for the country, it was September 1st to the end of September, but it varied from town to town.
Mm-hmm. We didn't have we wasn't on strike very long, as well as I remember. And just those that wanted to go to work, of course, went. And I'm glad I did. The mills had a bad name in general because it was low pay. But the union organizers was a whole lot of steps lower in character and everything else. It's just a riffraff. You know the meaning of the word riffraff?
Yes.
So I never regretted my decision. Now, my wife's mother and father worked in the mill. As far as I know, they worked. I don't. When they did start back up.
I know that in a lot of other towns, there was violence.
Yeah.
Often.
There's violence in the Bibb town in Porterdale. I've heard the story about to get to the mill, you had to cross over the river on the bridge. And there were the union organizers and some of the members on one side, and the other people hired by the company to keep them from taking over the mill. And there was some rough stuff in it, but I never was engaged in that. Of course, Judy, I know you are a northerner, and I know you with the northern opinion. I'm with the south and the southern opinion. And you may say, I'm the management thinking. And you and the northern newspapers and all always gave the South trouble or criticized them about this and that and the other. Some were probably so, and some were not. Some of the mills we worked, people worked child labor, usually that was one mill owned by a particular man, and he'd get the southern community and start up and work them for little and work them long. But not my company. My company was the best. Of course, you say I'm biased because I eventually got to be management too. But because I've always enjoyed reading and knowing what was going on. I've always done it. Even then as a boy, I always did it. I go to the library frequently and get books. We had a library just about a block from our place.
That was the factory, the company made a library.
No,
No.
it was called Price Free Library. And Price at one time was a mayor of the city of Macon, and he built this. It's about equivalent to a 4-room house, I reckon, one floor, and had all the books. You get any one you wanted, and free, and all that. I spent a good bit of time in the library, And when they finally built the Washington Library, I started over there too.
Beautiful library. I was there yesterday.
Yeah,
It's
I used to say library.
library.
Library, that's what I say library. Okay.
So once they put down the strike, what happened to people who had tried to be in the union?
What did they do with them?
Yeah.
Most of them, they knew what, for the union, they wouldn't employ them. That's true. That's the truth. It's bad, but it's the truth.
So they couldn't come back to the mill.
I think, of course, that was true, but there were only very few isolated cases. It was not a whole, because a large number of people didn't belong in there, so there wasn't very many that was hurt. You need more ice in your drink?
No, sir. I imagine people were in a real quandary about to join the union or not, or what to do, because do you think so? How do you think people felt about what to do? Were they mixed
Well,
up?
of course, a union organizer comes to town. He tried to find somebody that'll give him an introduction to other workers, some very vocal individual, and they talk up the merits of it, less hours and more pay and all that kind of stuff. And some people will fall for it. I've always been on the other side. As a worker and all, I always I thought my opportunities were going to come from management more than somebody on the outside. And it worked for me. Bill, in my opinion, was run by, I knew all of them. And they were fine people. Good Christian gentlemen. And the Lord says he may be a Christian gentleman, but he's anti-labor. I didn't think so. You can't run a mill without labor. You got to have people that you can train and will do what you want right. I think the manufacturing company was very good, and I hold no malice toward them. They were nice to me.
Do you think there were workers that held malice towards the company?
Not that I know of. Well, we have that reunion every year, and we got people coming to it that had grandchildren that's been that long, and all of them are extra nice to me. People come up and say, "Don't you remember so and so and so?" And most of it I've forgotten because it's been so long, But we had the finest workers, and Payne Mill was better than number 2 mill because it's more of a rural group. And they were fine. And if you talk to any of them, do you have any yet that you've talked to that were critical? I don't want their names. I'm not trying to. No. Did they tell you they enjoyed it?
I think they all felt like they really benefited.
You have talked to Mabel E. Parks?
Not yet.
Oh yeah, I want you to talk to her and Hazel Brickle. They're two fine ladies.
Tell me about, when you worked on the floor, did you know everybody by name?
Well, I was working in the smallest mill in the yard. The number 2 mill had way more employees than we did in that little group, and I knew most of them. Yeah, I mean, the blacks and the whites both. And I had good black friends in the mill, people that were nice, and I was right on the bottom level working them. That was the first step. I was working them and over them, supervising them, and working on machinery too. And I had some fine people. Most of them are dead now because they were older than me, but I've been all over Macon, and one of them would come up and recognize me and talk to me, just friends. And they say the South, Judy, like the individual and dislike the group as a whole. like individual persons, like a black person. We got some fine people, fine black people. I had a lady, black lady, that worked for me at Payne Mill, and her job was keep the restrooms clean, male and female both. Go in and clean them all, everything up like it ought to be. And you would think a person that was exposed to that all day long, you wouldn't want to have anything to do with her. But she was such a nice person, clean, that if I had parties at my home, she would come and work for me. I'd pay her for working for her. You may say, why would you hire somebody from a clean restroom? And she always used to tell me, she says, Mr. Morgan said the ladies, the white ladies, are the worst group that we have in the mill about messing everything up. That's what she always said. But she was a fine black lady. You may dislike the race, but there's people in all races you like. And the South in general has worked the Negro, and in a lot of cases they've abused them. But I say we were the one least apt to, in our textile mill, to abuse a person, black or white. I'll give you an example. We had every year we had a party for our black employees and bring the children to the mill. It's shut down, there's no operation going on. And we'd go in there and they'd have a little program. And we would have gifts for the children, fruit and stuff like that. Had done some nice parties, black people. We had just as good of black ones as we had white, just nice people. Because we didn't want a troublemaker white or a troublemaker black. I mean, between the races have conflict. We just didn't have it. It was just nice people.
What did you do at Christmas?
We usually had a Christmas party for them and gave them some fruit, a gift.
For everybody?
Yeah, the black and white.
You had the party together?
You
had the party together?
No. At that time, it was all separate. I don't remember a joint party, but that's been so long ago, Judy. And the doctor has put me on a medication that just affects my memory and some equilibrium, loss of equilibrium, and that may be cutting some of my thoughts out. And my daughter
You're doing pretty good, let me tell you.
My daughter insisted after my wife died that, Daddy, you need to go have your heart checked, your circulation, you need to do this, you need to do that. And everybody gave me a clear slate. I said, Marty, you put me through all these things. I said, I reckon the only thing left is let's have a sanity test. That's about the only thing your daddy hadn't had. But she's a dear one.
Oh, she seems lovely.
You know, people that have, every father or every man wants to have a boy. I wanted one worse than the devil, but I thank God that I got her instead, just one child. My wife fell off the stage at Payne City Auditorium there directing a Christmas play. And it was about 5 foot from the stage down to the floor. She walked off backwards and fell down and broke her pelvis. And I was always afraid to have any more children after she had broken her pelvis, you know. But I'm so happy I got Marjorie.
She seems very special, sir.
Well, that's the only one I got. You have so many. I don't know whether you got many brothers and sisters?
Just two.
Just one sister?
Just two brothers.
And two brothers, see?
Yeah.
Well, what it is on that, if you have a boy, he's going to be real good as a child, but when he gets married, the affection or the responsibility is going to be what his wife wants to do. But you got a girl, you have a girl for life. She's with you till the end. They are. Are you married, Judy?
No, sir, not yet.
Uh-huh.
But I will.
Huh?
But I will.
Yeah, that's right.
What I want to ask you, some of the ways that they put down this strike, this 34 strike, was that they deputized people to protect the mill.
I did some work during the strike and watching and things like that. I was never deputized. didn't carry a gun. I think what you have picked out the wrong group for the violence. It's got to be the small individual mills, I think. The Bibb was a good place, and the officials were good. If you had a stumped your toe or you hurt this, they'd go to the clinic. The nurse there would wait on you, doctor you up, and then if you needed the doctor's help, she would tell you to come back at 2 o'clock. That was his right. He would be there from 2 to 3 or 2 to 4, and you could see the doctor and all like that. But none of the others that I know of had that. And a social worker, a lady to help train the children the way they should be trained. The manners and all.
For manners.
Yeah, the custom, the southern way of living, the courtesy and the being nice and all that.
Don't you think were they able to teach them in ways that their parents couldn't teach them?
Well, now, let's say this. Say you got a child. Now my chain of thought's gone bad on me. But would you want somebody, a parent that could read and write, not illiterate? Would you want them to teach your child the customs, or would you rather pick up somebody that was trained, a trained person to help them? Even table manners. A lot of people from the rural South, they didn't know all the courtesy. They were nice. I don't mean that, and they had big meals and nice meals, but they taught them things like that. And I wound up before it was over. I joined the scout troop when I was 12 years old at number 2 mill, and I stayed in the organization. Finally, I was scoutmaster of the thing, and the sheriff in Bibb County was one of my members of the troop, under me as scoutmaster. And they even built 3 cabins out at an area called Al Shahal. That's swine organization. They bought the land and built 3 cabins so the boys could go from the community, go out there and stay with the scoutmaster over the weekend, go on Friday afternoon or Saturday morning, come back Sunday late, and all that. Our community had that, but none of the others did. And we played games with sports type games, and we had somebody, a playground director, to help teach the boys, had the one with the girls to teach them this, that, and that. I think it was good. It was a good community. And they were that way. They're good people. Of course, you do have some that's going to drink excessively. You can't have them in a community. You just don't want that kind of person. And we'd move them out if they didn't behave, all running around doing things they shouldn't do, and it got to be talk in the whole community. And they were eliminated. But we had good people. And you talk to these ladies, they'll tell you. I wish Ella Mae Fincher was here, but she's gone now. She was born in the Payne City area, in the village, and she was active with it for years and years. I think she's dead now. She's got a boy though. That's Eupress in Atlanta that entertains with some of the double talk and all. He's a real good entertainer. One of the last ones we had, he came that day and put on a little show for us. It's nice people. I think the unity is better at Payne than the other communities. But I may say that because that's the one I know best.
Did people after 34, did they ever try and have a union ever again?
Not that I know of. Not that I remember.
If they did, what would you do?
Well, since it never happened, I don't think you worry about what to do.
But I guess, did you, but the workers never wanted anything like that again?
If it did, they never did. I don't know. But now, with the last strike, When was the last strike? Was it after 45?
You know, I know that there was one in 1919, I believe.
1919.
I believe so, an early
See,
one.
that's way before my
Yeah.
day.
And then I know there's one in 34. And I don't know about the in the last 20 years.
Well, there was some efforts made to organize when I was at Payne Mill. And they had one or two people that were working for it, and they never got up enough to organize.
What were they trying to get that they weren't getting already from the
Because what everybody wants is more money and less hours. That's what all of us want. Now, usually, the workers worked 40 hours a week after the law came in, and the supervisors worked. I worked from 7 in the morning till 6 at night. 5 days and worked a half a day on Saturday. And I lived in the community, so if anything came up, and I was given free house rent, and my house was fixed up like my wife would want it. So I would be right there in the community if anything came up. So if trouble or anything, see me about it, you know. And we had a good community, and I'll be surprised if you find anyone that you talk to. Now you say, well, you said that you recommended I see select a few, so you go select the one that's more for the company. But ask them their opinion of this, that, and the work, and you talking any of them. Just any of that group you're talking about. There's a Sarah James out there. She lived at my back door. She lived, our back end of our house was almost together. And Sarah would come over, and anytime she wanted to, just a good community.
When did you move away from the community?
Where did I live?
When did you move?
Huh?
When did you move?
When I moved into Payne City?
When did you move out?
I moved out in maybe 57, somewhere in that neighborhood.
But you were still working for them.
Same company. Yeah, transferred to another bigger job.
But as long as you were superintendent, you stayed in the community.
I lived in the community, free house rent, because they wanted me there if anything came up.
Did they give you a different house than the
No,
working people got?
it was right next door to everybody else, but they did cater more to the anybody in charge than they would somebody that was not. In other words, making it more agreeable. Before I left the company, the other superintendents would select their own house in town and not be there. But I liked it that way. I liked it being in the community, walk to work and walk back. I was within a block of the mill, you know, where I was living.
Could you, did you see cotton in the area? Could you see the lint in the neighborhood?
You mean cotton growing?
No, I mean lint.
Did I see it? What?
Yeah, did the lint
Was it a-
come out of the mill? Yeah.
Oh, you couldn't see it outside, but you could inside the mill. I remember when I started to work at the Crown Star Knitting Mill, I'd come in, go to work on Monday, and you say Monday, you would, the dust would be pretty thick, and it'd affect me, and I'd have to stop and catch some fresh air. But see, laws have come in, and we had the first air-conditioned mill that they've ever had, way back yonder. When I was in the Crown Star Mill, we had the, can't think of the name of the company now, but one of the leading ones air-conditioned the mill. See, that stopped all the loose lint. So they'd go in there to be cool, then they'd take the lint out of the air, and all the mills were that way, got that way. But I don't regret working for the company. The company was a good company to work for, and they had real good people. And all those people you named, they'll tell you just like I do. You ask them when you get to them.
You think if the union had anything to do with the company wouldn't have been as productive?
No, I'm sure the company, nobody ever told me. I'm talking about what I realized. I realized the company thought that it would cost them more money to be unionized than it would have. That's true. And the ones that would have been benefited by it were the workers to an extent, and the union organizers to another. You'd be making a living for them too. It'd come out of the workers' helpers.
I read that the organizer for this community was a man named Ralph Gay.
Was a man of what?
Ralph Gay.
Ralph?
Ralph.
Spell it.
R-A-L-F.
R-A-L-F.
Gay. Yeah.
You R-A-L-P-H. Well,
P-H, I'm sorry.
Gay. Yeah. He was one of the people, as well as I remember. But I hadn't thought of that name in so many years. Yeah. I see you've done some groundwork.
A little.
Yeah.
Was he didn't work for you though.
Now that was at number 2 mill. At number 2 where Ralph Gay, he was one of the organizers. I do remember it now, but I couldn't have told you had you asked me what was the man's name. I never remember seeing him.
So he didn't work inside.
Not that I remember. But that is a long time, Judy, ago for an old man.
That's very good.
Judy, one thing I'll tell you. If you need to go to the restroom now, there's one right up that little step to the right if you need to go. If it make you more comfortable, you go.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So it sounds like you really had, actually, okay, how did they train you to be a superintendent?
They didn't. It wasn't a training. You were given the access to the machines and access to knowing how to make them do better, how they should inspect it and be jammed up. And that training you got from working did it, you see.
And how did they train you to deal with the employees?
How did they train me what?
To deal with the workers.
Well, I told you, when they hired Mr. Pittman, that's for my day too. He was still working, but his strength, because the supervisor did get a bad name, some of them, mistreating the people and messing around with the ladies and the workers and all that. But there was we knew what the company stood for because we lived in the community. The company wanted you to be educated as well as you could be educated and trained the best things in life, stay away from the pitfalls and whiskey and everything else, And you may say, well, maybe they trained them as children. My wife says that she got wonderful training as she was a firm believer because she went from the beginning to we were married. But I have no regrets for the bib.
Did most of the children that were born in the community go to work in the mill?
I don't know of any other than 3 of us going to college. The rest of them did not go as far as I know. Only 3 I remember. And one of them, he was in charge with the mill in Alabama. And the other one, he worked for the FBI and died, as I knew. He was working as a watchman, this one that died, working as a watchman at night so he could go to school in the morning, have enough money to go to school.
He worked for a watchman for the mill?
Yeah, yeah. Because, there's some advantages in that the man's a watchman, and when he's not making his rounds, he can sit and bone up on his schoolwork, That's some advantage.
Now, so most of the people that you went to high school with, they went to work in the mill?
I don't know of any others.
Most people that you grew up with.
Most, is that the word you use?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Many.
Oh yeah.
They went to work in the mill.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, housing was at a premium. That was the best housing workers could get at that time. And if they would, even affected me, my wife got to be the best borough's machine operator writing all the checks for the whole company out of town and in town. And Robbins Air Force Base was getting started, and the Burroughs man wanted to sell the Burroughs machine to the government, and he recommended my wife be hired and take to be over the check writing at Robbins Air Force Base. And she asked me about it. I said no. I says we can't be furnished housing, and you going to work somewhere else. You want to work for the bill. But if you don't want to work the bill, stay home. And then 2 years after we married, she became pregnant, and I made her quit then. So she hadn't worked after the baby came. That's my daughter.
She stayed home.
Stayed home, yeah.
Mel,
And she helped out in the community. Everybody knew her. She was real good, seeing that the schools were up to the quality they ought to be where our children went to school. And she got them another building built for it and all. She's very good. She was very much interested in the community. But she was raised in the community just like I was. I wasn't born there. Well, I think she was born in the country, maybe before her parents came to there. But Judy, you can say what you want to. I think the people were well treated. You may pick out isolated occasions where it looks like this, it looks like that. I was telling you about having a village crew that hauled the garbage, cut the grass, and cleaned the place up and all. I had an old Negro there working. He's an old gentleman, fine. He's real old, but a fine fella. He wanted to give us something. He wrote in his will he wanted to give me this and that, all like that. And of course I wouldn't take it. But he's just a fine fella. And I've had them in my home like a Christmas celebration, have them in there. I don't mean a formal thing. Don't mean that at all. But
Did you have a camera that you took pictures with?
a camera?
Yeah, did you take a Kodak? Did you
Yeah.
take pictures?
Yeah. Oh, well, I was telling you about those 8x10 pictures. We had a newspaper, the Bibb Recorder you saw. The editor would come around the communities and take pictures to go in that paper. And after he used that picture, then he would send it to me. And I had a stack up about like that. And so the first party they had, a reunion, I took those pictures. And I got there a little later than I ought to, and I spread them out on the table. Excuse me. And I said, anybody that's got the mother or father or the children in the picture, feel free to take them. And there's a lot of them had parents that been dead. He had a time learning all the things, but he stayed in Macon maybe 6 months, and then he quit the company and went to New York. And the first time I'd been in New York, I took my daughter, and we went through Baltimore and all that up there, and got this room. We stayed there about 5 days in the Hotel C in New York. And when we got ready to check out, I looked at the fellow next to me, his room, he was coming out. And it was that same fella that I had down here in Macon. Isn't that coincidence? And he'd been there about as long as I had, and we had neither one of us. It was just a pleasure to meet him, see him back.
How did he do in New York?
He did fine. I think now he's opened up some kind of waste company up in there. But we had quite an experience with him. He liked to tell us a joke, and what he did, I was and this Jewish fella.
The superintendent that you were working under liked the joke also.
Under his authority, and when he would get out, we'd invite him to come to our parties, all man party, and we'd give him some whiskey, and he would get a little loose in the tongue. They always tell this old story. And I have to tell you this because it's so crude, but that's his type of joke. He says that during the war, this man and his friend was taken to the beach. and he says, all the beauties, that's what he called them, the beauties, the girls, they were all there lying on the sand, and said that all of them, or this one particular lady, was laying there with her legs stretched out like that. And he says, the fella went up to this lady and he says, why are you laying in this position? Says, is that V for victory? She says, no, it's V for welcome. You know, the Jews can't, the Germans don't pronounce the W's, you know, it's a little harder. But that way, and whenever I do, my boss would almost slap him down to the ground, patting him on his back, you know, as if he enjoyed the joke. Now go ahead with yours.
Well, I don't have a joke like that. Well, let's see.
I want to add one person to your list.
Okay, let me do that right now.
Cole, please bring me the telephone book. I want to look up somebody.
You have it right down here? There you go. Did Mary Lou Whitlock and
Do I know them? Oh, yeah.
did they work under you?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's one of those ones.
But they're both fine ladies. She's a fine little lady. You'll like her. She's retired now, but she's all right. Tell you, Bubba. Thank you, sir.
Did she always work in the office?
When I moved there, she was in the office, and she was there when I left. So I don't know about prior to that.
So maybe you could tell me how you got into textiles.
How I got in textiles?
Yeah, how you started. Tell me about how you started working in the mill. You started in
Well, of course.
1932.
Well, I was living in a mill community, a textile. You say textiles, I say textile. I was living, my mother worked in the mill,
Which mill?
the number 2 mill, where the jail is now. And so when I finished high school, I wanted to go to college, and I didn't have the money to do it, and I had to work a year and go the next year, starting 33.
What did your mama do in the mill?
She was one of the machine operators. No status.
Did she come from a farm?
We moved. I understand we moved from the farm when I was real young, 1 to 2 years old, on account of the I can't think of the name of the insect that killed all the cotton. Boll weevil. Yeah, that's right. It did them, and other people just as well ran them out of the farm, and they came to Macon, and I stayed there. Oh, when I left there, it must have been in about 46, so that means I was about 36 years old or something.
And they came straight to the mill. Your family did. Did your papa work there too?
No, he did not. He was a shoemaker. He learned the trade. All right, now what else?
Okay, so you grew up in the mill village.
Oh, yes, I grew up.
Tell me about being a child in the mill village.
The housing?
Tell me about being a child in the mill village.
Well, the mill village, the bill manufacturing company was a progressive company. And when the people moved in there, they had a social worker that knew all the people and saw that everything was all right, you know, they were treated right and all that. And the homes were well kept up. They were.
What did the social worker do for you?
Well, because I was in the Boy Scouts, and my wife was there also in the same community. Her parents were machine operators, and she and I she attended that time, the schools were separated, the males and the females separated one another. And she was going to the female high school, I went to the male high school.
Were the high schools in the village or outside?
Oh no, it was some mile away or more. We walked, didn't have any other way of going. But we enjoyed high school, and then after I graduated, I'd already told you that I didn't have the money to go, but I went to work. I worked in the mill to operate machines, and I learned from one machine to another. I wasn't kept in one place. I was taught places that would give me a chance to learn the machinery.
Who taught you?
Well, usual rule, they had an overseer over the department, and the overseer would put me with a person who was already acquainted with the job, and then I learned it. And really, in those times were hard times, and there wasn't a lot of jobs available because, see, the 30s, early 30s, you know, was depression. And I worked there. I learned one job, and it transferred me to another. And to start off with, there was no pay to it because the wage and hour law had not been thought of, you know. I believe I was in college when Social Security first began.
Now, most people when they go into the mill,
Most of them what?
most people that go into the mill, are they transferred from one job to another, or was
If they
were you
want to,
special?
if they want to, they want to learn. Because see, I planned to be I wanted to go to Georgia Tech, was the engineering school, but I didn't have the money to pay for my lodging and my food up there. I could eat at home, you know. It's much less expensive. So I finished at Mercer University right there in Macon. So you want to see that when we go back in, I'll show you the college if you're interested.
Well, many of the people that I've spoken to, you know, they're mill workers. They didn't get too much of an education. They didn't finish high school.
No, well, let me tell you though, the textile mills was staffed largely with people from the farm. And I don't know your opinion of them, but they're some of the nicest people in the world is from the farm. Absolutely, that's what I found. They made excellent workers in the mill. And see, the company furnished them a house. Not everybody, it's always full, but as jobs, as houses would become available, they were the ones that were the nicest were given the choice of doing that. And in that community, not only had the social worker, but they had the village man that supervised everything, where the houses were kept up like they ought to be, and all of that. What's the matter?
Wait, can I cut in a minute?
Sure.
He skipped a lot in his childhood.
Kept what, honey?
He skipped a lot in his childhood.
Well, maybe you can help.
What
us
did he
out.
say? I didn't understand it.
He says that you skipped a lot on your childhood.
What do you mean by that, Bubba?
I mean, he used to get on top of the trolley cars with Dude Fincher
Oh,
and pull
Oh,
the
now what he-
string, pull it where the text.
You want to help your mama? Oh,
come here, Marjorie.
are you? Yeah, we are skipping a lot. I would really much like to know about growing up in the mill village.
Well, the mill way back there worked longer hours than they do now. See, most of them worked about 10 hours a day,
Now, so how many hours a day did your mother work when you were growing up?
just the one mill.
Your mama?
My
How many-
mother only worked in one mill. Is that the question?
No, sir. How many hours a day was she working?
When I started, I believe we were on 8 hours by then. But she has worked some of the 10 hours. A lot of the people did. And they had some of the finest people. And I tell you, the Bill Manufacturing Company was unique in that it had nice homes for them to live in. And they were well kept up and painted. And that was the first house I ever lived in that had screens on the windows and the doors.
Was that a house, were you living in better conditions in the village than you were on the farm?
I wasn't on the farm. Sure, it was better. On the farm, about all they had was a living. That's about all. You know, sharecroppers. It was the textile plants were an improvement over the farming. Unless you owned your own property, you know, where you had your own farm.
Now, were some of the best workers.
That's right.
Tell me about that.
Well, I don't know how I can elaborate anymore. They were used to working, and they fit well in there. We had, I think the beer manufacturing company had the choice of the mills, choice of the workers, because the mill was so much better. And they even hired a man here in Macon to be over everybody, all the supervisors in the mill, to be sure their morals were good. They wouldn't have bosses mistreating the children, the women, and so it was a nice place. Now my daughter there, she was born on the village in the textile community. I was living right next to the mill when she was born, and first street beyond the mill, first house, and she if she comes back in here, she'll tell you she was brought up. She first went to Wesleyan, that you and I saw up there, and then she got married, and he was a graduate from the Citadel. Are you familiar with the Citadel?
Yes, sir.
Citadel is a military school in the Carolinas, and they first went overseas. He was in the intelligence of the Army, and they got married while we were in Columbus, and they went right. We drove them up to New Jersey, so their car would. That's nothing to do with your subject.
No,
so.
it doesn't.
Go ahead, ask me some more questions.
Okay. Well, tell me about. I'm sure you know the history. In the early 30s, let's say, right before the Depression, what were the conditions like in the mills?
They were, in general, they were bad everywhere, but the village was an improvement over that. In other words, if there was a person living in the community and something was wrong, like he was a drunkard, or he was just a blight to society, no thanks, Chuck, you're a sweet boy. And so it was an improvement. You know, you had a good, clean community because the superintendent had the authority to discharge them if they were not the type people that you wanted in the community. So it was a nice community. Now, the other mills did not have that, but the beer manufacturing company did.
What were the other mills like?
Ma'am?
What were the other mills like?
They were probably somewhat like it, and I think we got the better worker, the better person, morals, and all that. People, usually, you know, your country people are the religious group that carries to their work and all.
Now, what was the name of the person who was in charge of keeping the morals?
H.W. Pittman.
H.W. Pittman. Is he still alive?
Huh?
Is he still alive?
No, he's dead, and all of his children have moved out of town. I had, for a while, one of his sons lived across the street from me. We came by my house, but I had no way of pointing it out to you.
Tell me about child labor.
Oh no, you couldn't go to work for the beer manufacturing company if you do at least 16 years old.
Was it always like that? Oh, was that a rule?
In all my lifetime, it was. Now, before that,
Ma'am? Hold on.
he's not bothering us, hon. He's not gonna bother us.
I'm calling which hold on. Horse is on.
This young lady, is my only child. That's the only one I've got. Only child.
So why don't we go straight to when you started working? Did you go into the mills when you were growing up? I mean, would you go inside?
No, you couldn't go in there. I had watchmen to keep you out.
So you couldn't go in, you didn't go in to visit your mother while she was
Oh, no.
So when was the first time you actually walked into the mill?
I don't remember. I don't know. I think first time must have been in there is whenever I went to work. And I had to have friends to get a job even then.
How did you get your job? What did you have to do?
Oh, well, I mean, people knew me in the community. Say, Mr. Pittman knew me. And Mr. Pittman knew my wife, the girl that finally became my wife and all. And they knew, they picked the better ones, one they thought was best prepared. And he called up the employment manager and told him that wanted to give me a job. And so the personnel man, employment, he did it. He gave me a job to learn and then to go ahead and run the job.
Now,
Oh, they were all good to me.
and what was the job that you ultimately got?
You know, I think maybe the first was starting at the very beginning of the mill when the bales were opened up, and I had to feed them into the machine to tear them, make them loose, you know, instead of compress with the baling. I believe that I ran that, and it was normally the black people did that type work. But they put me in there, and it was no air conditioning. It was hot. It was very dusty. But I did it until another job came open, and not too long after employment, I was given the job to.
So you went from the opening room. That's what that was called.
That's right, opening room.
Opening room to what was your next step?
The next one was the carding. And eventually I got to repairing the machines in the carding. The carding has got two big cylinders, one of them 60 inches in diameter and about that wide. And the one in the front is 28 inches in diameter. And they have wire on them. Wire that's pushed through cloth. It's real stiff cloth. And it's set. They're set together 7/1000 of an inch. And if it actually hit, they ruin that wire on that. And it costs $400 or $500 to get it fixed. And most of my college work, I was doing that type work. It paid me the most money that I could get in the mill, unless I got to be
This was in the carding room.
yeah, in the card room. And then after it left there, they went to the drawing, where they'd take the saliva coming out of the card was about the size of your little finger in a can, rolled around in a can. The next process, put 5 of those cans together to make them more uniform. I thought that was my son-in-law. All right, go ahead. And then when, after you leave the drawing, it went to the slubbers, where it's a roving machine. It made it into smaller fibers to go to the spinning department.
Did you work in there too?
I worked on all of it, yeah. And then we made it in thread in the spinning room, and the twisters we put more than one ply together, whatever the customer wanted, and sent it to him and had winding, well, that was a finish operation, to wind the yarn onto a tube, a cone. And you know the difference between a tube and a cone.
No, sir, tell me.
Tube is, of course, just like that all the way. A cone starts small and it's large, you see. And it could stand up on its own in the next process. It's on a pasteboard cone.
Okay, so
But I did that, and I finally got to be overseer.
now, how long did it take for you to become overseer?
Let's see.
Well, you worked-
Well, I know it was, well, of course, the whole time that I was in mill operation to maybe about a year and a half, I say.
From the time that you started.
Time I started, yeah, it took me that long to work my way through the mill. And
That's
then
a very short time, isn't it?
it wasn't bad, because, see, I had an advantage over so many people, and I had a better education.
How was it possible that you got to stay and go on through high school?
How was it, what going?
How was it possible that you were lucky enough to get to stay and get your education?
Of course, I tried, and I wanted, I had my goals in mind. I tried to reach them, you know. And that's the way I did it, working one to another.
So when you got into the mill, was it, did they know, did they have it, were you slotted to be an overseer when you came in?
No, first opening came in there, I got it. And as far as the mill was concerned. And then I was over the whole mill there. And then they moved me to the Smell Payne Mill in 45, January of 45.
So you started at bib number 2.
That's right.
And what street, where is bib number 2
Huh?
situated?
It's what?
Where is bib situated? Bib number 2, where was it?
It's right there where the jail is. Maybe you ought to go by there and see it.
I'm gonna go tomorrow.
Okay.
I'm gonna go. Mr. Whitlock's gonna take me.
Well, that's good. You're talking about
Arthur.
Fleeman. Fleeman?
No, Arthur.
Oh, Arthur. Arthur wasn't connected with the mill there as long as I was there. I knew him because he had relatives. But I don't believe he ever worked there after I got there or before I got there. He was gone by that time. But I know him. I think he worked at Robbins Air Force Base. Didn't he do that?
Later on.
Yeah, that's right.
After the war.
Yeah, that's right.
So, so tell me about overseeing other people. How did you do that? What did an overseer have to do?
Well, the overseer is just like any of the supervisors. He's responsible for the machinery and his people in that department. He's responsible to management, to the superintendent, to see that they're treated right. The people in the mill, way back in there, had high morals. They were good people. And you talk to Fleming, he's a fine gentleman, don't you think so?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk to Miss Parks. Miss Parks she might have been born in the community, but and Hazel Brickle, she's one of the best workers I've ever worked. She was in the office.
Now, which section was the section that you were overseer?
I was only overseer in the number 2 mill group. Now let me clarify that. Number 2 mill had more than one mill within its boundary. It had the number 2 mill, the big mill. Then it had the Crown Mill, which is a smaller waste mill, ran reprocessed cotton. And then it had the Star Mill, and it made yarn that looked like wool. Had altogether different machinery. And well, to give you an idea what it would do, they made a fiber or thread, and when the sugar people were sewing up the sacks, the needle had to go in there and punch it. And if it put sugar in there, it'd come out through those holes. And so we made the yarn that they sewed through it and the package together to close the hole up where it would not leak out. Of course, all that's changed now, but that's where it was back there. But when I got to be overseer, I never did anything. Well, I finally got to be overseer all over the whole little mill where I was working at the cotton.
Over the bib 2 or the Crown Mill?
Crown Mill, yeah.
So you weren't overseer of bib 2? Or you
No, I got to be superintendent over number 2, Crown Star and knitting. And I worked part of the time in the knitting while I was in school. It was a mill making work socks. And we made socks and stockings, cotton stockings now, for people that was in the Elamossonary buildings or something. I mean, that's what we made them. I went to it. Women today wouldn't wear those type hose. And the mill's closed down because there's no need for that type work. But all of it was under the same management.
Now, the management at the time was Anderson?
Was what?
The management at the time
Was what?
was Anderson? Is that right?
Oh, he was the president, W.D. Anderson. And the vice president was James Porter. And all around Macon, you'll see a beautiful building at the Wesleyan, the James H. Porter Auditorium. I saw my grandson graduate there a year ago. And in fact, he had a fund set up to help people that wanted to go to college, not just mill people, but anybody. And he had a man that was a purchasing agent for the bill manufacturing company called William Weaver, Mr. William Weaver. And he administered the fund. The other man furnished the money and he administered it. And I was able to go over there and borrow money from that fund to pay my way in Mercer because it's expensive, you know. And I formed a friendship with him, with the purchasing agent at that time because I paid him back the next summer when I was out of school and put my money to pay it. And from then on, we're real good friends, but he also is deceased now. He's gone.
Now, so were you working in the mill and going to college at the same time?
Yeah, I went to college, I think around 8, and got out about 2. And I walked home, tried to fix me some lunch, and then I went to work at 3. And I worked till 11 o'clock.
Now, this is when you were super.
No, no.
This is when you were a worker.
I was a worker, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you became a superintendent.
Superintendent.
By what year?
45.
Okay. So.
I was overseer prior to that.
Okay, you were, and then, but what year you started working in 32?
That's right.
And you were an overseer by the middle of 33?
No. Well, I finished college. I'd say it's in 39 or 40.
You finished college in 39.
I finished college in 37.
37.
Yeah, and I say by 38 to 39, I'd been made overseer
Okay.
over 3 mills.
So the whole time that you were in college, you were just working.
I was working as a worker. Yeah.
Okay, all those years, the whole time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you were working second shift.
Yeah, I had to because school was in the morning. I had to go. I worked till 11 o'clock, and my work, most of the time, I was on those card machinery. I told you it had to be set so close. The wires couldn't touch, but it had to work to pull the fiber out.
Now, so for the 4, so you went to college. It took you 4 years to go through college.
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
So for the 4 years, you went from one job to another job to another job.
That's right. Well, finally, I kept wanting to get more money, a better paying job in what I was doing. I worked my way up, you know.
How much money did you make when you started working?
It wasn't high by our standards now, but it was consistent with the textile industry. I mean, everybody, and Bill, I believe, paid more than most of the other mills.
The wage for the textile industry was, how would you describe it?
It was low. You know, you remember the first wage an hour, I think it was 30 cents an hour or 45, I've forgotten. It's low. But that was in keeping with other basic rates for untrained people with no experience and very little education. But Bill was a good company.
So for 4 years, you went from one room to another room, learning a craft, to different jobs.
Yeah, but it wasn't quite as fast as, you know, you would say it. It was...
Okay. I misunderstood you before. I thought it took you a year and a half
No.
before you became overseer.
See, college is 4 years, and I worked 4 years in the mill before I was promoted. I told you I got to be one time there. I told you a while ago, the lady that kept up with the weights of the material as it went through, and that teaches you a lot about it. She had to get samples to go to the test lab, and I got her job and worked on it. I got something. She got paid more than what I was doing, and as the job would come open, I tried to get it.
So you went to work in the thick of the Depression.
Yeah. See, slow down with us, gal.
No, I'll let you do the talking part.
Well, I'm good at it. That little old man likes to talk anyhow.
Good at talking, you know, most of
But Marjorie went overseas and had to complete her education after she got to Europe. She did, and finally, what was the name of that college you went, Margaret? In
Maryland, Towson State.
Towson State College. You familiar with it?
No, it's also.
It's in Baltimore. She went there, but she went to Wesley for just one term, and she studied over there in Columbus too.
So do you tell me, you went to work right before the NRA, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recall when the NRA was brought to the community? Tell me about that.
Well, all it meant was gave you more a ceiling on your work, and then later on, they got a limit of 8 hours. After 8 hours, they had to pay time and a half time. So it was good.
You think the NRA was a good thing?
Oh, sure. As I say, I still have my original Social Security number way back there, from way back yonder.
How did things change in the mill once the NRA came?
I didn't see a big difference other than the number of hours, and it still wound up about the same amount of money, because they worked 2 hours less, but the wages went up. Had to, be competitive.
People have told me a little bit about something called the stretch out.
How the what?
Could you tell me about the stretch out?
Stretch off.
Stretch out.
What is that?
I think the way people described it was that they had to make production, they had to work faster.
Oh yes, there was an incentive to work faster, in that you made more money too. The inexperienced, they made just the minimum, but people that would work, and they did, and because a lot of the people's against the textile organization say that they were child labor and all that. Not in my day, was it? Our mill wasn't child labor.
When the NRA came into effect, Roosevelt said that he gave. Do you recall he gave he made it legal for people to organize?
Yeah, organized labor.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What happened? How did that affect it?
Bill had some people that joined the union, and it finally wound up where the union workers struck, and the bill shut down for a while. Then they had enough people wanting to work, went back, opened it back up. And I was with the group that wanted to work.
That was in '34, right?
I don't remember the year. I'm sorry, I don't.
Could you describe that to me? What happened?
What happened what?
During that whole period of time, during that strike?
Well, because it was not just only Macon, it's the other big mills and other textile plant in the South.
It was all over the country.
That's right. And we wasn't shut down much. The company had some work to do. I worked some during that time. But, because you people from the North like to think that the people in the textile industry were just mistreated. In some cases they may, but not in our company they didn't. Because I started just at the very bottom of the heap. And they treated me fairly, and they would, every one of the supervisors, the people in the office said, "Now Grady, if you want anything I can help you on, come, let me go with you." And we had graduates of Georgia Tech, the engineering school, had there. And in fact, the mayor's son was from Georgia Tech, and he's the one that helped me a whole lot in teaching me things like
The mayor of
engineering. But it is, Bill was a good company. Don't you think so, Marjorie? Wasn't the Bill Manufacturing Company a good company?
It was a good company.
Now, Marjorie was brought up there, and they had, we had a social worker, they had clubs. She was in the girl reserves. That's something like the Girl Scouts. And we had a paid doctor and nurse in the community, no charge for that. And You went to camp every year, no charge for that, isn't that so much?
I saw a book called, it was about 80 Years of Payne City, the one that Jack Pollard put together.
Uh-huh.
And it had a photo. You have one?
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful book.
So they have a reunion every year, and all the people, not all of them, but representatives from all of them, Marjorie goes. And what was it, last year, the year before last, they dedicated to me. Which year was that, you remember?
22 years ago.
2 years?
They dedicated the reunion to you?
Yeah, uh-huh. Jack got it up. Jack was brought up in the community at Payne City, and he had an older brother, and he had a younger brother, Donnie, and his mother and father were separated, and his mother was a distant cousin to my wife, so just a little connection there. But they had activities for those girls. They had junior girl reserves, the girl reserves, and I had a pile that much of 8 by 10 pictures was made. And they had a bib recorder, a paper for the whole textile industry, the whole bib industry.
Have you seen a bit before?
I've seen one little excerpt from it, but I'd love to see more
I've
of it.
got one.
You do? From what year?
I don't know, Judy.
You said
Marjorie-
you had pictures.
Let me tell you why she's like, Marjorie is Director of Family and Children's Services in Macon.
Really?
Yeah.
That's something.
Yeah, she's, course I wanted to be a doctor. I told her I'd been to work my way through college and I weren't encouraged. No,
Do they still make one now? From 1968. This is an article about your mother, your wife.
what's her name?
Mrs. Morgan and mother in accident. Mrs. Grady Morgan, wife of Bibbs Macon Division Superintendent, was injured in a traffic accident Friday afternoon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with her mother.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's a shame.
Hmm?
She was okay? That's why you saved this one?
Because somebody had that.
I think I had them then, honey. Your mother had saved them. When she died, I got Marjorie to take what she would out
I
of
think, Judy, that speaking of girl reserves was so valuable for my mother, when she was growing up.
Maybe I have a
No, I don't-
microphone on your
No, that's fine.
Oh, okay.
I don't think I had as much to offer as Dad, but I think girl reserves was more important to Mother because it gave her an opportunity to go places and do things, whereas Mother and Daddy had money to allow me to go. I mean, I went on vacations with them and I had anything I wanted
Right.
because Daddy had a good job. But when my mother was growing up in the girl reserves, the social worker, would take them every year on a trip to Florida or to
and two.
Washington, D.C., and
Yeah.
then would teach them social graces and teach them how to be hostess, how to prepare meals for large crowds, how to entertain. My mother was a singer, and Mr. Porter sent her to Western Conservatory to sing, and she sang at all the functions. So it gave her a good outlet.
And for that reason, every time they had all the children went together to go reserves to Miami, maybe Jacksonville down in that area, and they would always fit that trip in with what civic clubs in the city would be having their meetings, a luncheon, and she would sing for them. She was always on the program to sing. She sung all over. I was telling about Mr. Price too, Marjorie, about how in the hotel in New York, how we met him. Yeah. Marjorie and I enjoyed the Hayden.
And Frontier.
Yeah. You familiar with that?
Yes,
Yeah. She and I enjoyed
Why
that.
are you interested in Payne City, Judy?
I'm working on I'm one researcher of a couple that are working on a project about the textile mills during the 30s. Yeah. So we're looking at the textile industry in the South.
Well, textile industry in the South.
Are you associated when you go to
I work out of New York University.
and you're a student?
I was a student there. I'm working under a professor who teaches there. and we were hired by a research consortium that's been researching the textile industry.
For what purpose?
We're making a documentary film for public television.
Well, is Bill the only one that had all these social things?
I think a lot of the mill villages
Did.
did, but it looks like, I'm really just starting out, but I get the sense that Bib might have been one of the most well orchestrated.
We like to think it's more progressive.
When you said progressive before, what do you mean by that?
I mean, I say it was better than most of the others. Better living conditions, working conditions and all. Housing, don't you, Marjorie? Don't you think we were better than this?
I don't know about the others. If I can make it appear.
Well, you compare it with Atlantic Mill or Willingham Mill.
I think with Judy, the documentary will show it was all for a purpose to work.
Well, that's what I thought.
To keep people happy, and the family orientation allowed them to work harder, and I'm sure people didn't leave, and I'm sure it was done for financial.
Sure it was, sure it.
But they did seem to be more benevolent than a lot.
I know, I've heard a lot of people who were workers who had a really tough have told me that people in the town really looked down on them. They call them lint heads. And I wonder if it was different in Payne City.
Oh, you didn't. I never remember working where people would use that expression. That's derogatory. People wouldn't.
They did say it.
If they were joking, it was not.
They would say it derogatory about people that worked in the mill, call them,
Oh yeah. The textile worker was quite low on the totem pole. Yeah.
See, I was fortunate because my daddy was in charge, and I had the best of everything. I had money when the shift didn't.
When the mill was on curtail operation, you
Daddy
mean.
still had his salary, and I was, I was the boss's daughter, so I had it. And in Macon, when I went to high school, the fact that my daddy was seen as a supervisor, so I was.
Do you think you can do me a favor? Could you sit over here because it's hard for me to hear
But I'm saying I don't think that I'm sure there was some derogatory feelings about male people, and I think I was fortunate because my daddy was a supervisor, but I'm sure mother and daddy in their younger days in the Depression, but I guess that then you were so grateful to have a job and to have an income. You didn't concern yourself with any derogatory comments.
Oh, well, I thought we were talking about lint heads. Is that what we're still talking about?
We're talking about the social stigma from coming from the mill village.
Well, yeah, it could have been there, but
You said at Mercer, remember when you
Yeah.
were going for
oh yeah.
honorary fraternity?
Oh yeah, that's
Didn't
true.
They say
Yeah.
Didn't this boy say he's a lint head?
Tell me
No.
about that. What happened?
No, she's talking about. I went to the school right down by the mill, the county and city school, and then after I finished there, well, all the mill children went to that particular school, but we had also other houses near it that went to it. And the people in the mill village, a lot of them were looked down on, so to speak. And then when I went to college, there were the two of us was working for the mill in the same class. We started together, and he got in the Sigma Pi, is it Sigma Pi, fraternity, and so they were talking about people they wanted. And one of the members of the fraternity says, "You don't want Grady Morgan," says he's one of those cotton mill boys.
Of course, the boy that got in was a cotton
He was cotton mill too, and he told me who it was and all. It was
But I think the amazing thing about Daddy is that he would work in the mill 8 hours a day and attended college and walk to and from college, which is just amazing. And he would work from 3 to 11. And he had to walk. How far did you have to walk to get to college?
I guess a mile, a little more maybe. Isn't it?
And I don't see how
'Cause it didn't take as long to come home if you saw her run a little bit too, you know.
What do you attribute? I mean, I imagine you were very different than most of the boys in the village.
Yeah, because they would make fun of him for going to college.
Oh yeah, a lot of the boys, they quit work, got 16.
And they said, well, you
Quit school,
the
I mean.
other day what they told you.
Oh,
How did people treat you because you went to university?
Well, I don't feel like I've been mistreated, but what this boy did that also went to that grammar school, that elementary school, he said I was from the mill village, and so they didn't want me in the fraternity.
But what Dad, you told me that the boys, remember the ones that you were working with when you started working, and they would say, make fun of you for going to college?
Well, they did that, yeah. Instead of coming on and working,
Uh-huh.
I went to college, and they quit when they could. I didn't have any money, or very, very little money, you know, because I worked in the grocery store or anything else I had to do. But they told me I was too lazy. I ought to quit and go to work where you have some money, chase the ladies. But she looks at the question, I say chase the ladies.
I understand. No, it doesn't sound like you were lazy, sir. You were going to school and working at the same time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But
But still, they had money. I